April 4th, and this is the committee meeting for Teaching and Learning Committee for the School District of Waukesha Board of Education. Could start by verifying that the meeting was properly posted.
Yes.
Thank you. Our first item of business, I'd be looking for approval of the TNL minutes from the March 5th, 2024 meeting.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Borowski. Any questions, changes? All right, it's okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 4-0. I should note Mr. Zenobia is excused for this evening. Thank you. We have an opportunity for public comment. Has anyone signed up to speak?
No.
Okay. Moving on, our first item under general business is discussion and possible action on an update to Board Policy 5460, which is graduation requirements that we discussed in March. Jen?
Yes, good evening. So tonight we are bringing forward this policy. As you stated, we discussed this preliminarily last month in regards to the graduation requirements for the personal finance. The personal finance changes now require us to have a standalone class. So based on that, we are bringing forward the policy to discuss and possibly take action on. I'll share a few of the highlighted changes, and then we can discuss it a little bit more. So first on this page, we've had this chart here in green. What you will see is the change. We added an additional column so that we can see for that what is required for that class of 2028. In there, you will see that there is the personal finance. The total of credits remain the same. This will just really become part of the required electives. This is explained a bit more in A here with the notes of the specific class to meet the requirements. Since we were bringing this policy forward, there's been something we've been working through on the policy that we wanted to propose some revised changes, and that's really in section C. There's a statement here you can see outlined in pink or that red color where it states ninth graders are required to take either integrated math or more advanced math courses. This piece, while it's not impacted for our students on a annual or regular basis, what happens is when we accept students from other districts as they come in or other new to country students, if they didn't have like a class called integrated, it makes it very hard to look at their transcripts and then figure out what classes they would need and where we should put them. So our proposal would be to take that out, but not take out the requirement of the integrated piece for our students as far as the path course that we have here. This would just allow us some flexibility with students that are coming new who maybe had a what would be called pre-algebra in the past, if their system still did that and didn't have integrated, or if they had some sort of different math course. So we put this on here just to, as a discussion, talk about the possibility, since we're bringing this here with the graduation requirement pieces. Those highlight the changes. Everything else you can see is the same and no changes noted. So those highlight are the two things.
If I could maybe just start, because the whole integrated math piece, I think, was a little bit ambiguous in the first place because this was written when we had integrated math, and then we had integrated math 2. So it's also, in my opinion, not specific enough about what type of integrated math. And I think what we used to require was that they had algebra. And now we've got kind of the half algebra, half geometry, and then geometry moves into analytic and trig. So I even feel like just striking that sentence doesn't solve some of the ambiguity of what is it that we expect our ninth graders to be doing. Mm-hmm. So, and I think there's a smaller percentage of students that aren't coming through the district, but there's a lot, I think, that would transfer through parochial or private school into our high schools. Is there some other way to explain that, because even the sentences that remain still kind of speak to integrated math in middle school, but that would be an integrated one is the requirement that we're looking for. And so I don't know if is there a time sensitivity to this because of course selection that's happening or something that,
The financial literacy piece would go into effect for next year's, freshmen by the time they graduate. So we can discuss tonight ideas and we can bring it back. We put it on the agenda for discussion possible action, just wanting to bring it here and not knowing where the discussion would go. So we can talk about options and then bring it back.
well, and I really like what you guys did with the personal finance, because I think that's clear and it makes sense, and it explains what the new graduation requirement is. I'm just looking at this integrated math part, and I feel like maybe we should take a little bit more time with that.
Yep.
In fact, I don't have any problem with what you're doing. It's just more about how do we say it? And unless someone we could work through an alternate discussion of that tonight. I don't see this as being anything contentious. It's just, how do we get the words right? Because we still have reference to integrated math, and it's not really clear about what that means.
Okay.
Unless we want to just say integrated math 1.
I don't have any ideas off the top of my head. I'm just looking at Laura to see if she does, but we are fine to take this and work a little bit more, maybe even come back with some proposed statements that we can share with you prior to coming back, unless you have specific ideas about the rewording. We're open to both.
You do? Go ahead, Carrie.
I think if you want to clarify the difference, I mean, so we use integrated 1, we use integrated 2, but the equivalent of those were a combination of the algebras, the geometries, and the builds on that. And I think it may just be, parentheses, integrated 1, integrated 2 within school district of Waukesha, if we're trying to address anybody that's choicing in or out, that those are the equivalents of coursework, including X, Y, and Z. That gets to that point.
Okay.
So in fact, I don't have a problem with what you've done. I just think there's still a little bit of ambiguity with integrated math. But I think the only integrated math we have available in middle school is integrated math 1, so maybe it's kind of solves itself. I don't know what that means for a student who, let's say, took algebra in 8th grade, and then they come into 9th grade. How does this requirement apply to them? Because they would
Yes.
probably still take integrated math unless they had picked up some geometry.
Yeah, it really
competencies.
depends on each student and where they're coming from and what they took and how that went. But I know that's what the team's been working through, just based on individuals.
So the requirement is that 9th graders take a math class. Yeah. And the additional explanation is to try to give some color to how that would work for a student who might have taken integrated in
Starting in middle school.
middle school. Yeah. So is it as simple as saying that 9th graders have to take a math class?
That would probably provide clarity and then options of what math class it is.
Well, I think the first sentence.
Laura, do you want to come up? Thanks.
I think the first sentence says that ninth grade students are required to take 3 credits of math to meet the graduation requirement. I think the reason we're just asking to take out that second sentence is because if they had something called pre-algebra, then, okay, it's not integrated 1, right? But if they're coming to us as a sophomore or a junior with pre-algebra, they can't get 3 credits starting with integrated math. It says 9th graders are required to take either integrated math or a more advanced math course. Well, if they weren't here for 9th grade, they're not going to have a more advanced ninth grade class.
So I don't know what this item C says about like juniors or sophomores that are coming in mid-high school.
Because it says that the 9th graders are required to take either integrated math or a more advanced math course, and they may not have taken that as a freshman.
Isn't it nice?
Because this is about the middle
But it
school.
doesn't say that anymore, though,
Right,
if we're striking it.
correct. The proposed strikes that.
Okay, so
Welcome to the conversation, Dee. Thank you.
yes, hi. So I think one of the situations that we have at hand is that previous to the integrated math course, our policy required 3 credits of high school math. For some of our students that we have coming in who are transferring, students that are immigrating, we might have a situation in which the courses that they have taken don't necessarily line up well and cleanly with something or in a concept of integrated math. Certainly algebra, geometry, algebra 2 does that work for us. We're experiencing more diversity than that and need an opportunity to be able to help children get the identified math credit that they need for graduation. So if they're coming from, say, Whitnell, and they're coming in with pre-algebra in 9th grade, the question is that or is that not a high school math credit? To which then they would add on integrated 1, integrated 2.
That makes sense, what you're saying. I think maybe we're a little bit tangential because what we're looking at is the requirement for 9th grade, for our 9th grade. When I read this, I hear 9th grade students are required to take X. So if a student comes to us in 10th grade and they haven't already done that, none of this matters. We have a different plan for them, right? So I'm wondering if what we're saying here is simply that 9th graders are required to take math. But if they haven't reached a certain level of math, they can't graduate. Is that what we're saying? Because we do need them to get to at least integrated 2 in order to meet the standards for graduation, right?
Integrated 2, yes.
They have to have 3 math credits to
Math.
graduate. It's not course
3 classes.
specific, it is 3 math credits. We made it course specific when we adopted integrated math without the knowledge that we were going to be getting children in as juniors that had a different math pathway because of the courses that they were offered in the districts that they're coming from. And that's causing somewhat of the issue because counselors are asking, well, if they're coming in as a junior and they haven't taken integrated math as that is required by our policy, do we have to enroll them in integrated math 1? Well, the answer would be no, if that's not the course sequence that they need. So the problem is really with the naming of the course and the requirement of that particular course, not the 3 credits itself. Of course, freshmen are taking math as part of what they need to take.
Yeah, and I do completely understand what you're saying. I think we're not solving that with what we have, the strikeout on the policy here, because it still starts with 9th grade students are required to take 3 credits of math.
I think that sentence is to make sure that a student who may have been in middle school, and they could this year, next year, take integrated 1 and integrated 2, didn't stop, like take one math class their freshman year and then stop.
Or skip 9th grade math
Correct.
and go to stats or something in 10th grade. So this reads to me like it very much applies to students who are continuing within the district. It would also apply to students who are coming in from another district or private or parochial into 9th grade, like in as a freshman, where I would agree with maybe taking out that integrated math requirement makes sense because maybe they're not ready for integrated math. But I don't think it gets at the scenario that you're describing where somebody comes to us as a sophomore or a junior. I feel like that belongs someplace else, right? If someone admits past 9th grade and hasn't completed the minimum mathematics requirements that are going to get them on track to finish integrated 2, then what do we do with them? Because I think we're on the same page on what the
Yeah.
problem
Yeah.
is. I'm just
Yeah.
not sure that this is the solution to it.
Can't we just say high school students instead of 9th grade students? And then it will solve that?
Well,
Because-
no, they're saying that 9th graders are required to take math.
Well, they're required to
I mean,
take
it is
3
a-
credits.
But
What they don't want is for a student to have taken integrated math 1 as an 8th grader and then believe that they only have to take 2 years of math. So what we want to say is when you start here in ninth grade, you have to take a 3-year trajectory of math. That's what
Right.
we want.
I think that's clear.
Yeah.
But
But I don't
even-
think the scenario you described is clear.
And as I reread that sentence, actually, the first sentence actually says, the way it's stated, that a ninth grader has to take 3 credits of math during ninth grade. Like, the sentence itself doesn't read correctly. Like, they're not taking 3 credits of math their freshman year, but that's what
Right,
that sentence,
that's what I
that's
mean.
what that sentence says.
That's why it's just high school students to me. It doesn't matter whether they start in ninth grade or not.
Or a student
just-
is required to take 3 credits of math.
High school students need 3 credits of math, period, whether they were transferred in 11th grade or started in ninth grade.
What if we,
Work on it.
I think this is a good conversation. What if we said ninth grade students are required to take a math course, and all students are required to take 3 credits of math? Does that?
At the high school
does that-
level.
Does that try to get at both, everything we're trying to talk about?
Is that, if that is in fact the requirement, that we expect every freshman, regardless of their level, to be in a math class? And we
Yes.
can provide that to all of them.
Yes.
Although there is an exception, I guess, because people who aren't here in ninth grade, obviously, we can't require them to have taken a math class in ninth grade if they didn't. So we're just saying
Right.
ninth graders who are enrolled in the district will be taking a math class.
And all high school students will take 3 credits of high school math.
Yeah, I think that,
While
And
enrolled as
that
high
regardless of
school.
what you did in middle school, you still have to take 3 credits of
Correct.
math and at least finish integrated 2.
What about that?
So that's maybe I'm wondering if we just want to rework that separately. And although we've had a good discussion if somebody has language, but
Yeah.
open either way.
Yeah, we can definitely talk more and kind of craft some things out and kind of work on it and bring it back with more conversation around it. I think just the idea of once we look at the policy, looking at everything, and that this is just something that kind of we've been stumbling with a little bit, and thought it'd be a great thing to bring forward and just talk through a little. But-
Well, if I think back to our math pathways, as long as the student finishes the integrated 2, they can graduate that and has a total of 3 credits of math in high school. That meets the graduation requirements.
So that could be
Or is
part
there
of
an
the
exception to taking integrated 2?
I don't know. What I'd like to do is
Yeah.
talk to math coordinator about this to make sure that that is accurate.
I think if we're not in some sort of a time crunch to do this, I think that would be good, because then I think it would really spell out what especially with the new middle school pathway that kind of has the 6, 7 and stuff, I think it would be really helpful to a lot of families.
It could be helpful too, also to leave quite open if it is terminating an integrated 2, and actually think it's terminating with algebra 2 or one of the other choices in place of it, that we be as flexible as possible, because integrated math is something that is so nuanced. Not every district describes to that, and we do get students that transfer as seniors. So if we say something like including integrated math, we might have seniors who have taken algebra, geometry, algebra 2, who then have to take integrated math because we said they had to take the course, but they've already fulfilled the requirement. And that's kind of what we're finding just through our practice.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful, and I talk to a lot of families about math-related things, if we say, you must reach this level, and you can achieve that, or you can fulfill that either through integrated 2 or through,
Or an
whatever.
equivalent.
Or an equivalent, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Good. Awesome. Well, we will continue to work and kind of get feedback from others and bring it
Okay.
back next month.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining me
filling
and
in.
giving the specific examples.
Is there any benefit, Jen, in approving the changes without item C, and then you got some time to work on item C? Or,
There's no rush.
Okay.
I mean, this really, the personal financing, we've already been working on it. And it really doesn't go into effect until it's next year's freshmen by the time they graduate. And remember, it's going to be a course that they can take in a variety of years. So there's no rush right now.
and do they know coming in that that's going to be a requirement for them, and they could knock that off freshman year or something if they wanted to, or?
Yes.
They were told during registration this year.
Okay. And that's also one of the summer start offerings, or it's not?
Not
It's
yet.
not, okay.
Until it's a full once we move it to its own class next year, then the following summer, it would be one of the offerings that kids could get ahead with summer school.
Okay. It's going to be competing with gym.
Yes, it will be.
It's very popular from what I understand, so, okay. All right, thank you for that. And do any other committee members have comments or thoughts about that, or you're okay to just move on? Okay,
You know the direction it's going, so
okay,
it's headed in the right direction.
okay. All right, we'll move into our content areas, and we're all about literacy to start, so.
Tonight, we have our Act 20 team that's been working diligently this year. They were here.
So much time together that we dress alike unintentionally.
I
Got here
just-
today and we're like, seriously.
Well, you look lovely. Thank you for being here. So last month, this team was here to talk about Act 20, give you more specifics around what are the requirements and by when, and then provide a little bit of information on what's been done so far. So they are here tonight to provide an update on the work that's been happening and bring forward some recommendations in regards to some curriculum pieces.
Hello. As a reminder, I'm Melissa Yao, Director of Elementary Teaching and Learning for K through 5th grade. And I have my counterpart, Dee Garcia, Director of Multilingual and Middle School Teaching and Learning, Carly Solberg, Principal of Prairie, and then Emily Freeman, the Elementary Literacy Coordinator. So as Jen mentioned, I believe 2 meetings ago, we came and spoke about Act 20, and then last month we were here to talk about the beginning process of our comprehensive literacy curricular resource. And we came to you and talked about the 3 resources that had made it to that final leg of the process, and that was Savvis MyView, Amplify CKLA, and then Benchmark Advance. And tonight, we are here to tell you that Benchmark Advance is the resource that we would like to recommend to you. But first, we would like to tell you why that is, that we feel this is the resource that is right for the school district of Waukesha. So on March 6th, we had a wonderful day here in the school district of Waukesha. We had our 3 vendors come in and do presentations with 26 individuals that was made up of directors, school principals, school psychologists, literacy coaches, ESL teacher leaders from dual language and monolingual. And from that presentation with the vendors, learning more about the resources, through using a rubric of does the resource have these elements or not, 100% of the 26 indicated that Benchmark Advance would be a recommended suitable resource for us here in the district. Later on that evening, we opened up to all elementary to come in and look at our 3 resources, and they had a similar rubric where they weren't using the rubric that we had showed you before, where we were making sure these resources met the 9 areas. We had already done that work, so we knew that these 3 resources already aligned with those areas. They were looking to see things like, would this resource help me in planning for my student instruction? Does this resource provide ample opportunity for students to practice foundational skills? Does this resource really connect reading, writing, phonics, background knowledge throughout the day? And we had 51 teachers come in that evening from classroom teachers, special education teachers, from dual and monolingual. And of the group coming in, we had 90.2% say that they felt this resource was suitable for the school district of Waukesha. And so we would like to go a little bit deeper in what we have found.
So we just wanted to start out by reminding you that when we hear about the science of reading, it really is a body of research and not a specific thing. But that body of research is really built on some mental models of reading, which are on the left-hand side. Scarborough's rope is one you often see that talks about all of the pieces that come together that make up decoding and all the pieces that come together that make up language comprehension, and how over time, by building automaticity, those things all weave together to produce skilled readers. And then on the right-hand side, those are the 9 areas that Act 20 clearly says must be included in a new curriculum. And so you can see the crossover between the model on the left and the requirements on the right. And we're going to walk you through tonight all of those pieces and how they are present in the benchmark curriculum. Like Melissa said, this is a comprehensive resource. So all things literacy are in one place. The benefit of that we heard from teachers in their review is that they're not going to multiple different platforms, multiple different resources to find what they need. But this resource includes things for reading foundational skills, phonics, reading and vocabulary, small group, writing and language or grammar, as well as comprehensive assessment, both formative and summative. And the best thing is that all of those resources are created to work together and build knowledge for students. Often we have all of those pieces, but then it's on the teacher to make sure that those connect and make sense for kids. And that's just an extra layer of work that this resource already has put together for us. One of the requirements, along with those 9 areas, is that there is an explicit and systematic scope and sequence. And those are words that we hear a lot, that you need an explicit and systematic scope and sequence. Often, teachers, when they're creating their own scope and sequence, have that scope and sequence in their classroom. But we know for kids to be the proficient readers we need them to be, that explicit scope and sequence has to start in kindergarten and grow all the way through continuously so that you know what you're teaching, when you're teaching it, and that you can ensure it's building on what happened before. We're not repeating things, we're not accidentally skipping things. We know from brain research that reading is not a natural process for our brains, and so in order for it to happen, you have to have explicit and systematic instruction. And so one of the things we really like about the benchmark program is they have explicit scope and sequences that show the overall scope and sequence of the entire program, but it also has scope and sequence documents for specific parts. So like phonological awareness and phonics, which are part of those 9 requirements, as well as grammar. So you can see the big picture. You also can really dive deep into the specifics and see how they grow across one school year and also how they grow across K-5. The other piece that is required is background knowledge, and all of the curriculums that we looked at are all knowledge building curriculums. And the focus of a knowledge building curriculum really comes out of a lot of the research around comprehension, and that comprehension needs more than just strategies, but knowledge is often compared to Velcro. Knowledge sticks to knowledge you already have, and so students have to have a layer of knowledge that we're constantly building on and adding to. We really appreciated and valued the way that Benchmark sets up their knowledge building because they have 10 units across the year. The 10 units, kindergarten through 5th grade, have the same big idea. So Unit 1 in all grade levels is life science. But then in each grade level, there's an essential question that evolves and changes to make that concept grow and become deeper, to really grow that knowledge in science areas, social studies areas, as well as literature areas. We added Erica Yoss, our district science coordinator, to our team to really help us with just a different viewpoint. And in reviewing all of them, she said that the way that Benchmark has their order of concepts set up really actually builds towards larger conceptual knowledge, where some of the other ones she felt like had themes and texts that connected to those themes, but the intentional building of knowledge wasn't present in the way that it was in Benchmark. So that was a good extra perspective to have as well. And the ways that they build knowledge throughout the unit, they start with that little picture in the middle is a launch video that every unit has. It's about 1 minute long, kind of previews the essential question, has some videos or photographs that really help kids think about what they might already know about that topic. And then every unit has a knowledge blueprint. That's what that blue table is, where kids are intentionally throughout the unit thinking about, what do I know? How did that text I read add to what I know? How am I building that over time? So it keeps that knowledge and that essential question in the forefront throughout the whole process. Which brings us to comprehension and vocabulary, which is so closely related. There's been a shift in some of the newer research that in comprehension, we used to be extremely strategy-based. So we would teach mini lessons on how to find the main idea, how to make an inference. Strategies are still important, but what research is telling us is if kids don't have any knowledge for that to stick to, we can like drill them with finding the main idea and we're not going to get anywhere with it. And so this is really set up with those themed units and the way the texts build over time to be helping kids build their comprehension while gaining knowledge. And vocabulary is a huge piece of comprehension as well. And one of the best ways to develop vocabulary is through building knowledge, because we can't have kids memorize every single word, but as they are building knowledge of topics, they start to understand vocabulary and how those words go together, words that are connected. And Benchmark includes a very explicit research-based routine that they introduce all of the vocabulary words with, and then those words are used in the texts. Kids are expected to use them in their discussions and in their writing. And so it all intentionally flows together.
As Emily said, Benchmark Advance includes a really clearly defined scope and sequence paired with explicit instruction in both phonological and phonemic awareness for the early grade levels. And we know that those are incredibly important areas that will help with proficiency later on in terms of reading. The instruction is set up with clear modeling at the beginning, so that's where that explicit instruction comes in, and then kids have the opportunity for guided practice. And we love that this curriculum provides opportunities for extra support for kids who haven't quite acquired that skill yet or need some additional practice on it. Phonics follows a progression of skills that build from one grade to the next. It starts with foundational skills in those early grade levels, followed by work in multisyllabic words, then moving into work on syllable types, morphology, and Greek and Latin roots. The progression follows what research tells us is the best order to be teaching these skills in. It also provides opportunities for students to practice the skills in isolation, and then it has texts that are written in a way that allows kids to practice transferring that skill as they're reading. The writing instruction in Benchmark Advance is structured in a way that's similar to what our teachers are already used to teaching. So we've done a ton of work around writing instruction this year, and that's something that we're excited about. It will feel familiar to them in terms of the structure. So again, it starts with explicit teaching and modeling, followed by guided practice. Students have an opportunity for independent writing, and then there's lots of opportunities for feedback from the teacher and from their peers. The updates include more opportunities to practice writing that is writing in response to text-based prompts. It also gives them more opportunities for open-ended process writing. Oral rehearsal is built into all of the lessons, and we know that that's incredibly important because if kids can't say it, they won't be able to write it. Grammar is also explicitly taught and applied to the students to the writing that students are doing. So again, there's that opportunity for transfer of the skills that are being taught. K1 starts with a focus on the word and sentence level, And so that's a bit of a shift because they're going to be working on that structure of writing from early on in the grade levels. And then we know that oral language is the foundation for everything else in literacy, and it's also a key way for us to make sense of our learning. So Benchmark Advance provides a lot of different opportunities for students to grow their oral language skills and participate in different discussions that also tie to vocabulary and comprehension. The curriculum provides consistent routines to teach students ways to productively engage in the discussions as well. Reading fluency is also taught explicitly within Benchmark Advance. Kids also have opportunities to read a text and then reread it, focusing on developing their fluency. There are also readers' theater scripts that are a part of this curriculum for teachers and students to use as needed. And then another thing that we love is that Benchmark provides lots of resources to build that homeschool connection. So prior to every unit starting, there's a letter that is going to be sent home to families to preview the unit and all the learning that will be happening. And then once the units are completed, the student booklets go home so that families can see the different texts that they've been reading. And there's also games and activities that are included in those student booklets that families can work on with their kids at home to reinforce the learning. Another option that's there for teachers is just different materials that can be loaded onto students' iPads. So there's songs, there's games, different texts, and those things can also all be used at home to reinforce what's being learned in school.
One of the most exciting things about Benchmark has been their commitment to helping districts like ours to address the diversity of students that we serve. And so within Benchmark, the supports and scaffolds for our students are absolutely outstanding. We have supports and scaffolds that take students that are already proficient at standard and accelerate them. We have opportunities for supports for students that are striving to the standard but need an additional scaffold. There's an absolute recognition throughout the entire program that all of our children are developing the academic language of English that is used in academics. In our classrooms, and so you'll see that in the yellow shaded areas, there's integrated English language development, which really helps to support kids who are newcomers, kids that are developing English as their first or their second language, so that they can accelerate. Oral language is, like Carly said, a critical component to being able to comprehend reading as students grow, and there are several supports throughout that are supporting the oral language development. You'll see things like sentence frames, sentence starters, and different academic language scaffolds that help students to be able to use their language in ways that are recursive with other students and apply to their reading. Finally, I think that this is one of the tools that we have that gives us with steps that we can take to accelerate students who are already at mastery when they are in their grade levels. Certainly, we want to grow the capacity of all of our children, but our teachers are going to need supports to be able to do that, and there are structured opportunities for that with Benchmark. Also, we do recognize that we have students that need an opportunity for reteaching and/or beyond grade level acceleration. Benchmark does come with the 5 resources that you see here that would provide us with the opportunity for intervention and/or acceleration with language, phonics, and word recognition, comprehension, and fluency. So we're very excited to be able to have those components integrated into the core instruction that students are having in their regular classroom. So teachers aren't looking for something else, hoping it matches and fits. They can literally reference between their core instruction to an ancillary resource that will help them either reteach and/or extend for a student. And that is game-changing in terms of the efficacy and agency that a teacher will feel in developing confidence in using these resources.
I just want to say, we brought to you most of this, showing you through what is there for Benchmark Advance in English. This exact same things through Authentic Spanish are provided in Benchmark. Say it for me.
Adelante.
And so that was another reason that we thought that this was so high quality. Not only our students who are learning in our monolingual classes will be getting rigorous curriculum, so would our students who are learning in dual language, who are learning Spanish and English as well.
Can I add something before you move on? This is a unique resource and the only one of the resources that we looked at that will offer our students both English and Spanish literacy instruction every day, from kindergarten through fifth grade. That is a game changer for us to be able to align our program and practices to the research and evidence around dual language. Benchmark is the opportunity to be able to do that. So we're very excited.
And we just don't want to bring a resource to our educators. We want to make sure that we have time to learn together over the course of time. So as we're initially thinking about what we might be doing, of course, then once we know when we have that resource, then we'll get really deep into scheduling out what learning would look like. As a first glance, we would, at our Summer Institute in August, we would be having time, half days, multiple half days of really digging into this new resource. We would also like the opportunity, if this resource was approved, to offer an early adopter session earlier in the summer for those people who, want to dig in early. Then when we have district learning in October, we would come with another dip, and we're thinking that we would really focus in on that explicit phonics teaching. Our teachers have been doing some really great work around phonics, and we want to continue to build that knowledge and really dig in deeper with what these resources can do for our students. Then in February, when we have Winter Institute, we would want to dig into an area that we haven't done as much learning on yet about building knowledge and how that this curricular resource is a knowledge-building curriculum and what that means. And then in spring, we would want to get in and work together on implementation walks and see what areas are going really well, where are our next steps that teachers are really feeling that they need some more learning around with this resource to dig in deeper. And then across the entire year, we would be working as a district team to make sure that we have common professional learning in all of our buildings so that we have that time together where the message is the same, the learning is the same, where teachers are able to work together, connect with each other outside of that. So then we get to our favorite part, the cost. And we looked at 3 resources. Resource 1, the 6-year quote was around $1,800,000. The second resource for 6 years was around $1,700,000. And then Benchmark, the third resource, our 6-year quote was $1,200,000. However, because we do have currently phonics and writing, we would be getting a $251,000 offset credit of what we've already paid for, as well as they would be reducing the 10% shipping to 5%, which would bring us just under $1 million at around $996,000 for the cost of these resources. And the resources that we would be getting, K-5 for 6 years includes English teachers' materials for kindergarten through 5th grade monolingual, Spanish teacher materials for kindergarten and 1st grade dual, Spanish and English materials for our dual language, 2nd through 5th grade, 6 years of digital access, 6 years of student consumables, because each student, for each unit, there are the individual magazines that each student gets. So instead of a big, thick workbook, each unit has a very colorful resource that students interact with and then go home at the end of that 3-week unit. So all of these would be coming back every year to us new, so every student has their own. And then it would include 13 professional development days with Benchmark consultants, and then it includes shipping, which once again is reduced from 10%, which is standard, to 5%. So with that, we would like to take the opportunity from you listening to how this resource aligns to the 9 areas and why we found this resource to be the one we would like to bring to you to discuss, with the opportunity to move towards a vote for potential approval.
I have a list, but I'm not going to go first.
started?
Let me just start with verifying that I have the history kind of right, because I'm impressed by what you guys have done in terms of negotiating all of this. But I was just looking back at this journey that we've been on with phonics and with writing in particular. When we approved the benchmark writing resource, which was in 2021, it got implemented for the first time in the 22-23 school
Correct,
year,
in our
right? So
second
this is only
year
our
of that.
second year. We did an update last April, but we weren't even to the point of having a lot of the results yet, although we've seen our overall literacy proficiency go up a lot. I remember when we started working on that, our writing proficiency in third grade had gone down like 8 or 9 percentage points in terms of competency, the percent of students that were proficient. And it was alarming. And there was so much positive around the benchmark writing, and the anecdotal feedback and just the passion that the kids had for the writing was so significant. And just looking back at that, so we're 2 years into that, and I think we had spent about $350,000 on that when we got it. So what we're looking at now is absorbing a majority of the cost of, or reclaiming some of the investment in that, in this new package, and getting 6 more years. So I see that as a financial win. The other is that the phonics piece was actually purchased, I think, in 2020 or 2021. So we would be coming up on the 6-year end of that
Yeah, next.
anyway. So we're essentially snapping a new chalk line with everything.
Correct.
And starting with a new 6-year going into next year. So from a cost perspective, in terms of what we're getting, just looking at the quality of the materials that we got with the writing program alone, I feel really good about the price. Are either resource 1 or 2 on the list that was approved at the state
Great-
level?
Great question. Resource 2 was on the 4 that got approved by the state that was recommended by the committee. Resource 1 and Benchmark and Resource 2 were all on the list that DPI went through and did the same process and recommended, as well as across multiple states who have very similar laws as we do.
So I think, again, from a cost and quality perspective, we're in a much better position than we would be if we were starting over and choosing one of those resources which aren't meeting our needs. The other thing that comes to mind for me is just the amount of professional development that's gone into the writing and the phonics side. And if I understand correctly, they look a little bit different, but the principles, the scientific principles of it are the same, if not improved.
Correct. The phonics is the same. What has happened is they have advanced the phonemic and phonological awareness. They've really beefed, that's a real great word, but beefed it up, spiced it up. And so, right, we have that in our digital pieces where teachers can see that, but with this, teachers would be getting new, the hard copy of the teacher manuals with that enhancement in their hands as well. The writing is a little bit of a shift, but what we're not losing is how teachers now know how to model, and that piece is in there. It's just a little bit more of, I would say, structured writing, but the passion and the way teachers teach is all still in there, and the celebration that's happening through writing of students, that would not be changing.
Okay. The other part that you mentioned, I think Dee mentioned, was the intervention packages, which was a question for me. We still obviously have kids, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, that have some gaps remaining from COVID era, or just gaps in general. Some of them big, some not so much. So I know that our educators put a lot of effort into trying to find the best ways to close those gaps. Do they welcome these resources, and do they make their jobs easier or not?
Yeah, we're at Prairie, we're piloting benchmark phonics intervention. And the nice thing about it is that there are consistent instructional routines that cross over, both universal curriculum and then the intervention. So it still feels familiar to teachers while going deeper and getting, at the specific skills that the students need. So I think it will be a very welcomed thing to have not only a resource, but also a resource that's going to feel familiar and connected to what they're doing in universal instruction. So again, like that opportunity for transfer across parts of the day is going to be there for teachers, and not something that, like right now, there's oftentimes a mismatch between what they're doing in universal and then how they're trying to intervene, and they're needing to figure out like how do these things connect. So it's done for them.
And I think I would add too, I think it's gonna shift from the teacher's brain power going into like, what am I gonna do? To now, here's what I'm gonna do, and my brain power can go into making it the most effective for the students in front of me and looking at that assessment data that I have, because I'm not having to put all my energy into like, what is the thing I should use? So I think that those two pieces in general, like as teachers came in, we're looking through the materials, that was one of the, they were like, they have books that are called intervention. So people were really excited for that resource to match.
My last question is kind of related to that in terms of assessing where those skill gaps are. Are these tools that are embedded in this program, or are we using something else like our iReady or other assessment platforms?
Act 20 requires us to have a specific screener. So we will find out this summer what that screener is from the state. So that will kind of be like that first round. And then Act 20 also requires anyone below the 25th percentile have specific diagnostic testing. Some of those diagnostic tests could possibly be from benchmark if they match the, like a phonics screener or a phonics diagnostic could be from there. So there will definitely be those crossovers, but that kind of big level screening and diagnostic work happens outside of benchmark for the most part, but then will connect to benchmark being the resources that we can use to meet a lot of those needs.
So whether it's FastBridge or something else, we still have the ability to evaluate where those gaps are and map those into what the intervention resources are that we have available.
Yep.
And there's more consistent opportunities too within the universal materials for common assessments that are going to give us good data to look at that level. And then within the interventions, there's really nice assessments built in. And I think that's been empowering for teachers to see, like, I am intervening on this skill, and these assessments within the intervention are showing that I am closing gaps in that specific skill. So if we can get that all aligned, that's, I think, really going to give teachers a sense of like, I can have an impact.
I'm going to add also that I think it's important for you to know, but certainly the public to know, that this is the first opportunity that we will have for two sets of data in two different languages to speak to each other. And so if a student has a gap, say, in recognizing initial letter sounds, we would be able to do a diagnostic in Spanish and English and be able to figure out where we want to put our efforts. And the collection of evidence on student growth could be collected in either one, and the two assessments could transfer those skills back and forth. We no longer need to purchase a third product that may be completely unrelated. So that's an exciting opportunity, and I can't express enough enthusiasm about how this provides some continuity for teachers and some opportunities for collaboration that we've never had before, and certainly like at your fingertip alignment for our staff.
I would just also share about the screening and testing. Last year, we moved forward with FastBridge. It could be the one selected, it could not be. But most recently, the expectation to do the screening at the beginning of the school year has moved to later in the school year. So it's not required till January at this time, but we're also not going to find out what the assessment is until July. And so our plan right now is we'll continue with FastBridge. It might be the one, but we're not going to disrupt our system that we have in place right now. Once we find out if it is different, then we'll obviously adjust. But we're kind of planning on both scenarios. But we thought if we can wait a little bit, if we do need to change the assessment, then we can do that. The other piece is if the state, as planned, is returning to one common assessment across the state, we're going to need significant time as a state and school districts across the state to all merge into that data system. And so, once it is announced, there will be a lot of heavy lifting, because as you know, every, product has a platform and that sort of thing. So we just want to be mindful of that, but also say, we're going to stay with, start the year with what we have. We can use that assessment to continue the work that we're already doing, and using that as needed, but we're just trying to be responsive to the timelines and the information and when we get the information.
Okay, who's next? Mark?
Yeah, I've got a couple here. One's kind of really specific, and then one's maybe more bigger budgetary, but in the 2, 4, I think 9 science-based areas that this is all based on it, the state's requiring the first 2 maybe foundational ones, my word, not anyone else's, the phonological awareness and phonemic awareness. I feel like I need an example of that to better understand the difference between those 2.
This will be fun.
Yeah, let's do it.
Who would like to?
All right, a fun question, good for you.
Today, either of you?
Well, so the commonality is that both of them are based on hearing. So you can do it without letters in front of you. Phonological awareness is kind of the bigger umbrella, and phonemic awareness does fall under the umbrella of phonological awareness. But an example of phonological awareness would be if I say to you, like, say cupcake, now say cupcake without cup. What's left? Cake. So developing that ability to hear and manipulate, and so phonological is bigger parts of words. Phonemic awareness gets down to those individual sounds. So it could be the same kind of activity where I might say lawn, and now say lawn without n. Law. And so it's all about being able to put sounds together, take them apart, replace sounds, and those are skills that I feel like we're learning so much about in the last couple of years, and seeing how when we can really strengthen that in 4K, kindergarten, first grade, it makes all the difference once we're starting to then attach letters to that. Because kids who have all their letter sounds and might be reading like cat and are sounding it out and going k, at. There are some kids who don't hear, they're doing all the things, they don't hear that is cat. And so phonological awareness and phonemic awareness really feels game-like to kids, but is really building their flexibility in those skills that will help them as readers and then as writers, right? When they're breaking words apart to write down the letters as they're with the sounds they're hearing.
Okay.
Did those examples help?
Yeah, no, yeah, very helpful, thank you. And then totally the other extreme, just budget-wise, I assume this would come out of our next year's budget, I would think.
This would be coming out of, more than likely, a combination of budgets.
Okay.
Next year, this year, some ESSER funding and pooling together
Okay.
multiple.
So, I guess my question is just, I'm assuming the money's there, but I don't know a good enough amount of our T&L budget, to be honest with you, of maybe what percentage of the budget it is, or, and what other expenses might be coming down the pike where
We do.
Board salaries.
it's going to be. Or, okay, all right.
We are working behind the scenes. Yes, we have the funds available, but like Melissa said, it will be a combination of where it comes from. Typically, we don't have $1 million sitting in the teaching and learning budget with all of our curriculum adoptions. So we are working with a variety of funds, anywhere from ESSER to district funds to title or to teaching and learning budget. But looking at this overall comprehensive piece, we feel the value is there, especially since we're getting credited for some things that we've already purchased.
Right.
I will say one thing, that we have a very nice color-coded system in our office, and we have taken across 10 years and really looked at where were our first kind of adoptions of resources, what years, how many were there, what did we spend, and then, okay, when's that going to be coming up again? So as we were putting out there the quotes, originally Benchmark gave us a 5-year quote, And I went to the chart and I said, that's not going to work because we have 6 other resources that are coming up that year. So we went to year 6 and asked for a 6-year quote, to try to think about where our money pieces are, so.
Which is less than the next 2 topics, that is 7 years.
Yeah, right.
Well, no, I appreciate that foresight for budgeting in the future. I guess I'm also just curious, from what you know of it, maybe this is a question for Ms. Genderman. Any significant negative impacts on other areas of T&L if this were approved, even though only part of it's coming out this year or next year?
No, we would plan as the T&L budget moving forward. We've already been doing that. We're gonna, if approved tonight, we would purchase it this year with as much funds from this year and just put our heads together on all different ideas to get training and use our time wisely with professional development days. But no, it would not impact the teaching and learning budget next year. But behind the scenes, Darren and I have been talking about that longer 10-year plan and coming up with different strategies. We can't just say, oh, let's wait till year 6 and they're all due. We have some things that we've been talking about to alleviate a concern around that. Not that we do a T&L budget that is huge every year, but just that we're planning for future investments.
Gotcha.
Carly and I did talk today that we would be willing to wear sandwich boards when we're out and about and, collect money if needed be, but if we don't have to do that, we
That along with the board salary should do it, I think. All right, thank you. I appreciate the answers.
Maybe a follow-up on that, because I know we've talked a lot about this 6-year cycle and just doing a little bit more planning, almost like we do for long-term or deferred maintenance, right? It's really no different. We just have to have our sights on that. And we've done so much in the last couple of years that we just, need to not let that surprise us when the time comes. But I thought we had budgeted something for reading because that's been in the plan for a while. So we're kind of aggregating what we had budgeted for reading, what we're getting credited from writing, and then what we're saving. I mean, there's a lot of districts that are going to have to go down this path and are going to look to reimbursement from the state, and they're not going to be in a better position than we're in here. So I think we're probably in an advantageous position financially as it is.
Yes, correct. I think in earlier meetings, Melissa had shared that reading was on the curriculum review cycle for next year, but we've started down the journey already with the science-based instruction, and so and then with Act 20 we just kind of moved it earlier, so then everything else has just been adjusting, but this would be a time we just have to pivot some of our ideas around budgeting and just work collaboratively and look across all budget areas as a team.
Anybody else? Abby?
Well, first of all, I want to thank this team and everyone involved who took the time to evaluate and, explore the 3 options. I know that took time, and I truly appreciate that. Someone that holds literacy near and dear, having taught it many years. I've been waiting for this moment. I just wish I could still be in the classroom to experience
opportunity's still there.
what they're going to be having.
volunteer.
I know that, yeah, right. I know literacy has so many moving parts. I am very impressed with what I've seen with this program and what I'm hearing you all talk about. I love the intervention piece, that it's there. You're not looking for things that we've spent years doing, trying to assemble. And it's like Emily said, you spend so much time trying to acquire what you need, and you lose sight of the process, and because you're so busy trying to gather. This helps you focus on the execution of it all, and it's all there for you. I love the Adelante. I love that. For years, I know that our dual language, teachers have worked doubly hard trying to find pieces that would be similar to what's going on in the monolingual rooms. The fact that this is, same things are happening, and for both, it's amazing to me. This is like a dream come true for me, for those teachers. I love the home component, the parent letter that helps parents know what the kids, over dinner, they can have a conversation. I love the consumable. I mean, I'm old school, but a lot of kids are. That, I'm glad we're moving away from, just digital, but because some kids need the consumable. They need the worksheet, they need the workbook, and they love it. And I love that that's a component. Like I said, I'm very pleased with everything that this has to offer. It's almost too good to be true, and I know sometimes, teachers are probably looking and thinking, oh my gosh, another curriculum, oh my goodness. I think when you really get into this, though, I think that it will happen, that they're going to realize that this is a one-stop shop, and so much of what they need, or, I guess, have been searching for is all here, including the word study and word parts, which is something also near and dear to me, that I felt was lacking for many years in the district, because it just, to be honest, didn't fit. It just wasn't fitting where it needed to. I love the systematic building blocks of this program and how everything, in the science units, I love that Erica, was involved in this too. Her perspective is huge, but I love this idea that the themes, they continue to grow through the grade levels, because it is all about prior knowledge, and you're building your schema and all that. It's all part of it. So I really am pleased with what I see with this program. I'm really excited. I know it's a huge undertaking, but I think in the end, we're going back to things that had always worked in the past, just maybe needed a little bit of refining, maybe updating. But the process is the same, and it needs to be systematic, and I just love what I see through this program. So I want to thank you so much for this work. It's amazing.
And you mentioned that, like Erica Yas was a part of this, and looking, and we really, leaned on her to be looking through it all from her, lens. We have looked at it and looked at the units, and, how does it align to our current science and social studies? And do those help build knowledge prior or after? And then where might be some areas we could introduce some maybe new lessons in social studies that we don't have, because we have some areas there. And so it fits also really nicely with what we currently have there, because we really like those resources as well, and wanted to make sure that, that didn't take us in another direction as well. And we feel that that's a really good blending as well. And Hadassah Robinson, the Director of Special Education at the elementary level, has been collaborative with us and a part of this process, as well as Jamie Kupkovitz, Director of Student Academic Services, and really looking at it from that assessment lens too. So we've really tried to make sure that all different lenses that people have are a part of this process.
That's wonderful.
Carrie?
Thank you. I think if I have to reflect on this, this is probably for me the most exciting one that we would push forward. But thinking of what our goal is as a district, and as this is the most foundational, fundamental program we could implement that will impact every subject of all of our kids throughout their entire K-12 education. Hands down, it's outstanding. The presentation was great. I appreciate all of the work that has gone into getting us to this point. But I mean, for me, this is as easy it gets. So for me, I'm going to motion to approve the benchmark advance for K-5 reading curriculum as presented.
I'm going to second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes 4-0, and I think we'll see some success next week, so.
Thank you.
Thank you
for
all.
the conversation and the support, and thank you to the people here, but also everyone else that's been on the team. I know there's been timelines and information shared at different times, but you're all working so incredibly hard, and it's noticed and then also appreciated. So thank you, guys.
Shout out to all the teachers that came. I mean, having
For sure.
as many teachers as we came is absolutely amazing, and speaks to why I stay in the district, because of people I get to work with.
Yep, for sure.
Can I just ask a kind of a random question? Well, it's really not random, but I'm always curious. When I think back to that pie chart, that there were 9.8% of the responses were no. Was there any feedback of why they felt like that? Like, I'm just curious, what were the reasons that they felt
Yeah,
it wasn't.
There was, and so we made sure that questions that they had or wonderings, that we put that into the presentation. So, I know one thing as people were looking, they were like, oh, I really like that this resource has a digital component, because when they're looking through things digitally, sure, that was great. That's a additional, 200 plus thousand, dollars. That doesn't necessarily come with it. So answering that question for people was one of it. And looking back at, okay, what digitally do we have? One thing that you didn't see is there is a digital assessment component where students can take an assessment digitally, and then it pulls the information together and can group your students for you on what skills they would need, is one thing that Benchmark does. Another area, I know you and I talked about it, that was a big question.
Yeah, everything. Double microphones. Everything, because we picked that apart to see what the exact questions were, and everything that was listed seemed to be things that they just didn't find in their own exploration. So, one thing that was written was going off of their experience with the phonics we currently have. They talked about a lack of phonological awareness. That's an area that, as Melissa said, has been beefed up. And so all of those pieces were things that as we looked at, we were like, okay, this concern is just something that they didn't get to necessarily. It was a short time to look through 3 programs, and so there wasn't anything that jumped out at us as a true red flag, but just something that they hadn't seen or explored that part yet.
That makes total sense. Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right. I got turned around on my agenda. The next item on the agenda, I believe, is our social studies area.
Yeah, we'll have discussion and possible action regarding the high school social studies resources. We have government, and then economics is up next. And so Laura Ryan is here to join us. She's been here with others to talk several times. So tonight is really, she'll give a brief summary, and then we can have discussion and move forward how you guys see fit.
Welcome back, Laura.
Thank you. Feeling a little lonely up here.
So we're going to start with government.
Well, hang on. Maybe Emily wants to join you, and she can talk about the high school science classes? No?
My area, we didn't dress alike. And I have to go since she is.
Oh, is,
Thank you, guys.
am I able to, or project, or? All right, now I got it. Thank you. So I think I'm just going to do a brief summary, since I've been here the last couple of times doing the same thing. And just back in October, the team came and we talked about the need for adoption of a government and an econ text for our upperclassmen for our semester courses, as they did not partake in the adoption the year before when all of the other classes did. Really looking for a resource material that would provide a common, consistent experience at all 3 high schools and increase the rigor across all of the schools. And we spent the first semester, the teacher spent first semester piloting several texts, 3 for their government class and 2 for their econ text classes that we spoke to the board about last month. And then also we came last month and we recommended for government, we recommended the Stories of a Nation, which is the same text that AP Government adopted last year, because it did align to the course framework, and it had some of the features that they were looking for, and definitely increased the rigor for this upper class course. And last month, we also recommended the McGraw-Hill Econ book that the econ teacher who was here spoke to well last month, I'm sorry, again, and it's supporting the Wisconsin Standards for Social Studies and Econ, aligned to the course content, and they believe that this text was the most rigorous and engaging from student responses that they got. Last month, I also presented the costs for each. And if you will see in what you were discussing just with the benchmark is I do on the left-hand side have the government at a 7-year and econ at an 8-year. There's also a 6-year license. Probably can do a 7-year license for us, but I did stagger them because of so many coming due at the same time. So I thought that might be a better option to do. And obviously with the more years, you get a better deal with it. And that is what is included in each of those purchase costs. So, are there any questions?
I think we're all familiar on the government side, so we've seen that one on a few cycles. And I know everybody who was interested in the econ textbook got a chance to page through all of that and felt very confident about the presentation from last month. Well, I felt very confident about the presentation from last month. I'm not seeing a lot of movement. I asked Mr. Zenobia if he had any concerns in his absence, and there weren't any significant ones. So I'm looking around. I'm not seeing any remaining questions. Carrie or Mark, did you have anything? I think just for clarity, it would be best if we approve them individually, just so we have a record of them each being approved, but that's just my preference. We don't have to do it that way, okay.
I appreciate that we have, a textbook or, a resource, because again, from what I understand, we haven't had that, and there's been, again, that, homegrown potpourri of resources, and that's just so much work, rather than having something, universal that everyone's using in the district. I really appreciate having these resources for our students now, and the consistency.
Okay.
I motion to approve the recommended resource for the high school social studies course Government, American Government, Stories of a Nation as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Passes 4-0. Back to you.
I motion to approve the recommended resource for the high school social studies course Economics is McGraw-Hill Economics as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now the
Thank
work
you.
begins.
Thank you, Laura.
It might be like the 20th textbook adoption we've done in the last 3 years. Carrie's keeping her copy. All right. Good work on that as well. I think that was
Thank you.
great process.
So up next, we have the 4K.
4K update.
So we have Melissa Yao is coming back while Laura gets off I know. So she has a different team with her tonight. Tonight's presentation is really about providing an update around our 4K programming. It's very robust, and I think sometimes people don't know how great of a program that we have in our system. So when Melissa and I were talking, we thought this would be a great update to provide and to celebrate really all the great things going on. So as Melissa always introduces herself, she's the Director of Elementary Teaching and Learning for K through 5th grade. And so she can introduce the team that she has with her tonight.
All right. As I said earlier, I work with amazing teachers, and These are two individuals representing our 4K team, and we have a lot of fun learning together. And I'm not just saying that, right? We have a lot of fun. So this is Jenna Cron. She teaches 4K AM and PM at Rose Glen Elementary, monolingual. And then I have Nicole Zeroth, who teaches 4K full day at Banting Elementary, monolingual. So they are here with me tonight to share our 4K journey and where we are at today.
I was really excited. Oh, let me turn it on. I was very excited to be asked to help with this. I've had the privilege of being part of 4K since the very beginning, from day one in November of 2008 when I was a director at the YMCA, and Todd Gray called us all into a boardroom and said, we're starting 4K because DPI says that we have to, so let's get moving. And so over that 6-month period, many people from our community actually really just jumped in and said, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this in the best way that we possibly can do it. It encompassed early learning people from the entire Waukesha area and a lot of community partners, which we're going to touch on, which is something that's a little unique to 4K. So when you look at this timeline, it was starting in November of 2008, and it carried us all the way till April of 2009. So that 6 months journey, we had full board approval. We put a lot of work in. A lot of community members actually stepped in to plan all of it. So it wasn't heavy on district. There was actually one SDW leader and 20 different community partners that came together to plan this. We had the opportunity to travel all through the state and see what was already being implemented, from Eau Claire to La Crosse, down to Beloit, to see what was happening in our state. And then in September, we piloted with 450 students and actually started having wait lists. That was what we capped that first year at. It was in 14 different community sites, and all of the different community sites, things like the YMCA, Montessori, Head Start, St. Luke's, all of those current partners were partners from the very beginning. So that's a nice journey to hear too, that people have been here since day one. As we went through, we continued after that first year with 12 community partners and then added on 3 SDW sites. So the first 3 sites, Hadfield, Rose Glen, and Summit View, began in 2010. Since then, as we've gone through, we opened an early learning center in 2012, and that had early childhood special ed and 4K at the White Rock campus, which has since been repurposed. And when that closed, then all of the schools, with the exception of STEM, then had a 4K in their program. That's also then when we started to implement full-day programming, and that was unique to Waukesha at the time. Full-day 4K is not something you still to this day find in a lot of school districts. To my knowledge, it's us and MPS. And so that's a nice draw for families to have that option as well. My own child has been through the 4K program, so I could talk to you for hours about it, but I won't keep all of your time for that. But where we're at presently is we're continuing to focus on content. The implementation of different curricula, which you'll hear about, is something that we're very passionate about. With the very beginning, like you've heard probably everything else, we just kind of pulled it and figured it all out, and now we actually have curriculums in place that is great for our program and great for our students. So no matter where they go to 4K, they're having that curriculum. They're having a DPI teacher, an SDW curriculum as part of their program. So speaking of the program options, currently there's 3 types of options that are brought to you by DPI. The first one is called the Model 1 site. It's where an SDW teacher, that's what both Jenna and I teach in, are in an SDW building. This, as of last year, includes eAchieve now as well. We currently have 20 sections in Model 1 sites. Model 2 sites are where there's an SDW employee teacher at a community partner site. This current year, we had one last year, we do not have any of those, but we do have Model 3 sites where the teacher is employed by the community partner, still a DPI certified teacher and using SDW curriculum, but it's in a community partner location. So that currently has 16 sections. A couple of things that are a little bit unique to 4K in Waukesha. I mentioned that full day, but we have monolingual and dual language full day 4K. 4 days a week, our students are with us from that 8:30 to 3:40 time. And then on Fridays, then we have our prep and our professional development and PLC time. Then we also have 5-day-a-week monolingual half-day morning, and then half-day afternoon 4 days a week. Another unique option for parents that I have not been able to find anywhere in the state of Wisconsin, and I spend a lot of time looking at this kind of fun stuff, is that we have options that they can come 3 full days at a community partner site or 3 longer parts. So we're meeting those hours and then extending beyond them for what DPI. So our students are getting a lot of different opportunities than what students would usually get if they go for 12 and a half hours, which is what DPI recommends. I've alluded to some community partners. That year 1 were the sites that the community partners had 4K and implemented. Now we've come down to the ones that you see more in those outlines. So those are where the Model 3 teachers are teaching. My son himself went to a Model 3. He was able to do his morning preschool and stay at his preschool that he had been at since he was an infant. And then he did lunch, and then he went to 4K in the afternoon. So it was a really great option for families. And we have a lot of different options for hopefully what meets most families' needs in their scheduling. We also have a wonderful network of community support agencies here in Waukesha, and we partner with them. So to receive funding for each 4K child, they have to come around 12 and a half hours a week, and that's a 0.5 FTE. But because we work with our community so well, and because we offer over 400 hours of a community engagement and family engagement, each of our 4K students are reimbursed at a 0.65 rate. So that's something also a little bit unique for us. So we work with these partners to plan some of the family engagement events, which you'll see on this slide. Everything from family visits, which we do before the year starts and into September. Parents have the option of coming into their home or coming into school one-on-one and meeting with the teacher and really just forming that relationship before the year starts. And then we have Jump Starts events and, like everyone else, open house and parent-teacher conferences. But unique to 4K is we have 4K specific events for families, a curriculum night, cookies with Santa, a jamboree, which we partner with the city for, spring into summer, where we talk about all these great things families can do in the summer and help them really figure out some unique opportunities for their 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds at that time to be able to do. And then my favorite, Pizza Polka Art in the Park. Come in May because we will dance, we will have pizza, there will be art projects to see. There'll be hundreds and hundreds of people there from our community. It's really a fun event, so I'm always on the dance floor, so join me.
As Melissa introduced me, I'm Jenna Cron. I teach 4K at Rose Glen, and I've been teaching in the district for 14 years. I started off teaching at La Casa downtown in the basement of their building, and was in the community for 3 years before transferring to Rose Glen. So I can't believe how far and how much the 4K program has developed over these 14 years. There's not a few years, but these are a few of the resources that and curriculums that 4K teachers can draw upon to plan their school day. The first 2, Second Step and Play workshop, really focus on social emotional learning. And in 4K, that is something that we really truly value. So we're teaching students friendship skills, persistence, problem-solving skills and emotions, all of those things that make our students strong little friends and little learners. We also have Handwriting Without Tears, which is a wonderful resource for building fine motor strength, teaching children how to hold a pencil, how to hold a writing utensil, how to form letters, and how to form numbers. We also have interactive read-alouds and interactive writing. Both of these curriculums were written by 4K teachers over many, many summers and lots of time together. They do kind of what they say, interactive read-alouds and interactive writing. We're teaching students story comprehension, oral language, vocabulary. We're teaching them intertwined within all of these things, letters, letter sounds, rhyming, all of these foundational literacy skills that they'll need when they move on to kindergarten. Orgo Math is a really fun interactive program that we use with our students for teaching foundational math skills, so counting and patterning and shapes and sorting. And what's wonderful about this curriculum is it's very play-based and fun and interactive. We'll talk about this a little later on in a few slides, but this school year, we were able in a few classrooms to pilot Haggerty phonemic awareness. And we have found it to be an amazing addition to our day, teaching students about parts of words, beginning, middle, and ending sounds, rhyming, nursery rhymes, and also letters too. And it's been a really fun addition to our day. And then last but not least, the environmental education program visits our classrooms, each classroom, 4K classroom in the district 5 times a year to learn about the 4 seasons and also living and non-living things. All of our learning targets and benchmarks are based upon the Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards. Each of our benchmark comes with a rubric that breaks down the learning throughout the year. So what should a student coming into 4K look like, and where do we want them to progress for the end of the year? Each of these rubrics includes sample behaviors that teachers can observe in the classroom to kind of monitor and to see where students are performing. And also, all of our learning targets and our benchmarks, teachers have access to home components, so that if parents have questions about, what can we be doing with our kids at home, teachers have a resource right here that we can share with parents for them to work on at home. Next, we have our 4K curriculum frameworks, and this is a framework tool that's for teachers for planning. So what it is we break down, how we created it actually is we took our learning targets and then we worked backwards. So what do we want our students to learn within the first 3 months? Where do we want them to be? And then where do we want them to be 6 months into the 4K program? And then lastly, at the end of the year. So that just gives teachers a kind of an idea of what do we need to be working on and focusing on, and what do kids need and where are kids at.
So you've heard a little bit about the curriculum. We spend a lot of time learning together. And last winter, I came to the 4K SAIL team, and I said, guys, I've been doing a lot of research and learning, and there is an early childhood learning program that we could do together that no matter what our curriculum is, would help us really get better at teaching foundational skills with our students. Said it's pretty intense, but I really think that it could be life-changing in a way for us as educators and for our students. And so luckily we built a lot of trust within our team, and they believe me, and so we decided that we were going to begin this learning together as a 4K team this whole school year. And so as a SAIL team, we mapped out all of our learning time and built in this letters training throughout the year. Then this summer, the state, oh, glad I'm loud, the state, brought forth Act 20. And even though 4K does not have the teacher requirement of training, we were so excited that what we had already decided was needed in 4K, we had already committed to and we're doing. And so we've had a really eye-opening time learning together. I would say that this has changed some practices in the classroom and help us understand what our students need a lot better. We actually tomorrow are spending our second time with a letters trainer. We're in our final stages. We have tomorrow and then one other learning session, and then teachers will be taking that final assessment and will be fully letters trained. So I can't just say enough about the commitment that our teachers are spending in learning for our students' betterment. A big part of our group and what we believe in is we need to be a collaborative group, and we want to build that collective efficacy. So 2 years ago, as a SAIL team and collaborating with all of our 4K teachers, we rewrote some of our commitments to each other. And we hold each other accountable to these, and we start every meeting with building our intent of our commitments. So one of these commitments is we commit to respecting and learning from the varying experiences of our different models and sites. And so no matter where you teach, we believe that everybody is coming with something that we can learn from each other, and we want to make sure that in our time together, we provide that opportunity. Another one is that we commit to bringing positivity and remembering 4K is fun. As I said, we believe with young learners that play is important. We believe that that's important for adults too. So we build time in our meetings and through our learning to make sure that it's play-based, not only for our students, but for us as the adults. And so here is a group of us last year when we actually had an author come and share her book with us, and then it is in all of our classrooms. But from this group, they have over 206 years in the district combined together. The average 4K teacher has 8 years in the district. And of this group, we have 6 teachers that were here from the very start and 5 community partner directors who are still with us today. 2 other commitments. One of those is we commit to using research to ground and develop our teaching practices in order to nurture and grow each individual 4K student. And throughout the year, we have 3 times during the year that we take a survey that we created around coherence, progression, and culture to make sure how are we doing as a team, kind of that temperature check, and we give every teacher the opportunity to give feedback about what's going well or what additional suggestions you might have. So one question, this is from 2 months ago, we did our middle of the year dipstick. One of the questions was, my teaching practices have improved through collaboration practices and 4K PLCs. We had 64% who strongly agreed, and was that 36 who agreed. So we feel really good about the data that we are seeing. Another commitment is that we commit to asking and answering questions, listening and learning with all members, and sharing and advocating for our ideas. And so a question where we check in and see how are we doing is that 4K teachers have a sense of empowerment, teamwork, and community. And we found that 4% agree. We had 88% who strongly agree, and then that's not 88% strongly agree. I don't know how that got there.
Just 8, I'll do that.
It was 8% strongly disagree. So we had 2 people who didn't agree to that. And that's one of those areas we always want people, if you're strongly agreeing or strongly disagreeing, please tell us more about what that is so that we can address that and work together. And we spend time getting into huddles and really talking about that and digging in, and then bringing that back to the SAIL team and working on how we can problem solve if there's an area that we need to help enhance and address. And so with that, what questions do you have for us about 4K?
Who wants to start? Go ahead, Carrie.
I love 4K.
Come anytime. If you ever are feeling bad about your day or anything going on, come, they'll hug you.
Except that I'm actually very interested about the full day 4K because their attention span and how they do, that's a long day for them.
It is a long day. They have 2 recesses. They have an hour of play workshop. Some people have a full hour. Some people split it up into, play workshop time in the morning and the afternoon. There is also nap time in our full day for 4K because it is a long day and we want to make sure that we're meeting the full child's needs. So there is some nap time for the students, not the teachers. So
That's when we eat.
I mean, you have me. You have me at play and nap.
play, yeah.
So it's really great. I taught half day. I was a community partner director. I taught half day, and I have been teaching 4K. I got to pilot it as the first year, and I've been teaching it now for 10 years, I think. And I was nervous. I was like, ooh, full day, that's long. But my own son was in a childcare center for full day. And when we planned it, we looked at what the childcare licensing standards were for the state, and we modeled a lot of what we were doing in 4K with those because they're already they're in childcare. They have some planning. So we looked at How often should they have snack? How often should they rest? When should they be doing? So those components were really important to us. And we're constantly moving. So yes, we have circle time a few additional times where they're listening to an extra story throughout the day. But like Melissa said, there's an extra recess time. There's an extra social emotional piece time. We're really getting them ready for that full day stamina of kindergarten because they're going into the lunchroom and they're experiencing how to put in your lunch number. They're going to the library. So they're very comfortable in our buildings then. September, we're all very tired. I tell parents in September, just go home and sleep because that's all they can do because they're tired. But they build that stamina. And now I would say, and I love my half-day partners, but I would say that they are definitely there for the stamina of kindergarten differently than when they went to half-day.
My main question is really going to be on curriculum, and obviously as much we talk about it with all of the different schools and facilities, I love the collaboration, I love what that does, but are we using the same standard? Are we talking about we're teaching the same things within the same era, at the same time frame? Do you want to?
Yeah,
Yes.
I can too.
I'll let you go and then I can talk.
Yes, so the way that the curriculum is laid out, it's laid out per week. So all the teachers through all the sites, through all the models are teaching the same, pretty much the same thing at the same time. We're on the same weeks, and we're teaching the same things within the certain trimesters or semesters. So all 4K teachers are on the same page with each other.
Good, good, thank you.
Else? Ready?
I just loved a little, so I'm going to take you up on that. I want to come
He's
and see him in action. This is wonderful, and I love that you're already thinking ahead, with the different curriculums and things you're trying to get them ready for that rigor that is going to be now kindergarten, with the whole, the new program, the new benchmark, everything. It's going to just help to have them already ready to come into kindergarten with some of these base skills and experiences in hand. So this is great. I can't wait to visit.
You said that about rigor. We do have a very rigorous 4K, but it's not a kindergarten prep program. It is truly 4K, where we are building the skills that 4-year-olds need that are going to make them successful then when they're in kindergarten learning what they need. And so we spend a lot of time having crucial conversations about that and what are we going to do when we bring something new that we feel like we need to research or go deeper in. We really make sure that it's about our age group and use that research. So proud of that.
So I have a question that's maybe similar or kind of branching off from what you said, and I'm assuming you see a whole variety of readiness, right?
100%.
Different technical skills, different social skills, all that. So and you don't know what you're getting because we don't know where all these kids are necessarily coming from. So that's probably the first time that we may be identifying things that may look like learning disabilities or that may look like accelerated learners, or how is that done? And then what do we do in the transition from 4K to 5K so that the district has that knowledge of what's being identified in 4K?
So you're 100% right. When I say we're tired in September, that's probably a lot of it. Everyone's coming in with different needs. It starts with the home visits, and we actually do something called an ages and stages. So before our students even start, parents are filling out some information, and that is giving us kind of a dip into where they're at socially and where they're at academically before they even walk into day one. So we have a little bit of information before that begins, which is very helpful in some of your planning. But I would say that's one of the biggest advantages since adding 4K is we are able to see students before they walk into kindergarten. So we are identifying students, both who may be on an advanced track, but who also need some extra interventions. And we're able to provide some of those in the classroom and into our days. But it definitely takes some time. We're really blessed to have really amazing aides as well. And I don't think we touched upon that, but that provides us with, okay, they can work and support a student who's coming in with different needs, or who is coming in who hasn't walked into school, or who is not knowing our language at this time. So we have that extra set of hands in our program to be able to kind of provide that one-on-one support if they need that. But we are definitely identifying children then and saying, okay, we're going to work through a PST process, a problem-solving team process for different students, work with the parents. The parents are really very important part of our program, which is a little unique. My son's 13. I'm still learning about middle school, and he's in 7th grade. So 4-year-olds are very different, that the parents are really a very important piece of it. So I think that really is what we do. It's encompassing what we do as 4K teachers, is getting to see them where they're at. We keep data around it. And then at the end of the year, we sit down with our kindergarten teams and we share all the data and all of the information that we have. And we call it a data delve, and we go into it, and then we share all that with our kindergarten teachers. So they have some information before they can even see a student.
I think one thing to note about 4K is not required, right? By law, you have to, be in kindergarten. That's required. 4K is not. Now, if you choose to have 4K, there are certain then laws and guidelines of what you have to follow. And so 4K is really a proactive measure that can help, and you really can see a tremendous difference in our students who have been in 4K versus those students who have not had that opportunity. So I think it's an amazing thing that our district really puts the funding in place to have for 4K. And like she said, even full day, because there's different, amounts of reimbursement that you get between half day and full day. And so we really are investing in that early intervention, and 4K is just something that I think is one of those things that we can be proactive in by providing that opportunity.
Anybody else? I'm not seeing anything else. Well, thank you very much. This is really
Thank you.
insightful and exciting. Thank you.
And come play with us anytime. I know that Carrie's going to be getting into some classrooms with me, and we're going into 4K, so don't you worry.
Dr. Sieber gets hugged every time he walks in. Yeah. What? Come on in.
Does it require a foam mat? Do you have to bring your foam mat with you? Okay. They speak my language. All right, thank you very much. Well, this was a fun agenda tonight. I think we accomplished a lot and we learned a lot, which was great. Let's see, we're done. Are there any recommendations for future meetings that we should consider? All right. Since I think everybody's a little bit off this week, since this is Thursday, just as a reminder, we have our Finance and Facilities Committee meeting and policy on Monday, and then we will have our HR committee and full board meeting next Wednesday. And I do apologize. I'm not sure when our next teaching and learning meeting is. Thank you. It is Tuesday, May 7th here in the boardroom. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.